All right, now let's balance it out. Bring in the co-founder and former president of the National Iranian American Council, who's now the executive VP of the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft, Trita Parsi. Thank you very much for being with me, sir.
Thank you for having me.
So, you know the case. Genocide, why?
Well, I mean, look, if you take a look at what the South Africans are basing their case on, it is on the element that usually is the most important thing to prove, which is intent. But in this specific case, they have 84 pages, out of which about 9 of them are just quotes from senior Israeli officials that are declaring intent for genocide, because they're talking about how there are no such things as innocents in Gaza. There are no such things as civilians in Gaza. We have extensive plans by the Israeli government in which they reached out to numerous countries, trying to see if they can move out all of the Palestinians from Gaza. They call it voluntary migration. All of those things is what this case is based on. And this is what is so problematic for Israel, because it's its own statements that are being used against it.
Right. And to be fair, Bibi Netanyahu and his government are about as far right as we've seen probably in your and my lifetime in terms of open hostility to the situation and pushback on the idea of a two-state solution. Now, in fairness to that side, this was not a naked assault, right? It is in response to October 7th. And Israel is a country that has over 20% of its population non-Jewish, largely Arab and Palestinian. If this was genocidal intention, wouldn't Israel be doing very different things than it has done before now and even currently?
It's a good question. But the first point is, whatever happened on October 7th, which of course was a horrific attack, cannot justify genocide. So that's a separate question. So to be able to justify what is happening, including what the Israelis are saying in terms of there's no civilians, no one is innocent, etc., cannot be justified with anything that preceded that. So that's something that has to be clear. As to the question of what about the Palestinians in the West Bank? Well, it's not as if they're particularly well treated, but you don't have to commit genocide by killing everyone. So you can't claim, oh, I only went after 90% of the population, and because I didn't go after the last 10%, it doesn't become genocide. It's just simply not how the law defines genocide.
Of course, you also have Palestinians in Israel proper. You have many of them who are citizens, which is, again, a reflection of how do Israelis view Palestinians. Genocide, I think, is a very heavy word. This can be wrong and disproportionate and not be genocidal. Go ahead, Trita.
Yeah, but here's what's important. I think from the Israeli perspective, some are perceiving this as being a judgment against Israel as a whole.
Right.
That's not what this court case is about. It's about what is happening in Gaza. So what Israel is doing in terms of its internal policies and its treatment of the Palestinians who have Israeli citizenship, etc., is not relevant for this specific court case. What's relevant is what's actually happening in Gaza and what is the intent that is expressed by the leaders of the Israeli states in that. And that's why I think the Israelis are in a very, very bad spot. And let me just add this just in terms of consequences of this. For more than 15, 20 years, the Israelis have fought very hard against the BDS movement, the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. Not because it would really have much of an economic impact on Israel, but because it delegitimizes Israel. Well, nothing will delegitimize Israel more than being dragged to the ICJ and being accused of genocide using the statements of Israeli officials themselves against it. That has a much greater impact in the terms of delegitimization of Israel than the BDS movement. So this is very bad news for Israel.
Hey, thank you for watching. Please go to newsnationnow.com, newsnationnow.com, and you can find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button down below. Then you will get more of NewsNation's fact-driven coverage.